Kyler Murray though,
Yeah.
he whooped our ass. I'm a Vikings fan. The one time we can't afford to fucking lose, and we lose to Arizona, and then the Steelers lose to them as well, and it's like my entire family has just been getting kicked up and down by the Cardinals lately, and I can't stand it.
You guys just do football with helmets. Like, it's just like a soft version of football, you know?
You mean rugby?
The soft version.
No, football, bro. It's Australian rules football.
Who's the
That's
American
real
dude in Australia right now dominating?
There's an American guy, and I have no idea, man.
He just won it all, too.
Really?
Oh, really? Got exported? That's pretty
Yeah,
fun.
there's an American dude who's like 6'4" over there, running through.
He's a bit
People.
of a
We
demon.
finally had a specimen to send over who doesn't like football, so we just put him on a plane and shipped him over.
I'm pretty sure there was a couple of like kickers that were from Australian rules that went to NFL.
Oh, a ton. There's a ton in college. It's actually a big thing right now. Is college kickers were starting to protest it because like 23-year-old Australians were coming over and taking scholarship spots from these like 18-year-old kids, and people started to be like,
"Get these Australians out of here, man!" There's
there's more OC imports in LCS than LEC now.
It was like good arguments, and then all of a sudden the SEC got involved. People were like, "Whoa, nationalism's kind of coming in quick here." They were like,
"You gotta watch out for those Aussies."
Yeah,
the SEC does not take lightly to anybody but their own kind that is below the Mason-Dixon line.
Alabama, Florida, Louisiana.
I mean, that's the only thing you guys have. That's the only thing that Alabama has is the Tide. Beyond that, what else is there to do there? You have a shit education system and shit everything else. So it's roll Tide or roll nothing.
Okay.
Oh shit!
Football is the way.
State warfare happening.
I'm a Georgia fan, so he ain't coming for me. Atlanta has
I don't have to
culture.
come for you. The college football committee already did.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's fair enough.
Dude, I have no idea what you guys are talking about, but I'm assuming Grayson does.
No, I'm sorry.
I know a little bit. I'll get some water. I'll be back.
I have no idea.
College football's dying anyways.
College football's not dying. Pat McAfee is saving it.
Yeah, it's...
Oh, man. I love it. So, even though Grayson just left, I'm still going to do a quick introduction for everybody. Welcome to those in chat to the Crossover Podcast. My name's David. Paul, to my left here, is the constant co-host. We got a slew of people on the show today that, quite frankly, we're just here to shoot the shit, talk some League of Legends, talk 100 Thieves, and wherever the hell else this goes, it will go, as you can probably tell by the last 3 minutes of conversation. So, this could get wild. This could be fun. But I wanted to take the time to introduce or let everybody introduce themselves and give a proper intro, probably better than I ever could. And I'll start with you, Mr. Junglejuice himself.
Hey guys, it's Joseph. I'm the general manager for 100 Thieves LCS. I've been with the organization for a really long time, but honestly, I'm just like really excited to come on with the rest of the coaching staff to just shoot the shit with the fans. I think we'll get a chance to talk about a lot of things we haven't been able to touch on before, so I'm super excited.
I should probably ask with your introduction, give me your favorite Subway sub.
Yeah, you're putting him on the spot like that.
Wow, okay. Probably the BMT. It's just like a classic. Yeah, this is a classic. I like the variety. Probably the best one that I enjoy.
Do you get a cookie with that, Joe?
I refrain from the cookies because they're like honestly really good, especially like the white macadamia one, I think.
Oh shit! Yeah,
that one's really good. But yeah, it's like the nutrition on that is like terrible. So.
Damn, showing the discipline straight up.
Yeah. The cookies taste phenomenal though. Hashtag Subway.
We need to get you a real cookie.
Oh yes.
Kaimera, we want to go to you.
Sure. Nathan, I'm the head analyst for 100 Thieves. I've also been with the organization for a long time. Not quite as long as Joe, but a little bit less. My favorite Subway sub is a foot-long BLT Italian herbs and cheese. No cookie. I prefer the chips. There we go. Load it up.
Nice.
Easy.
Nice.
That Italian urban cheese is goated every time.
It's the only bread worth getting, in my opinion. You know, it's just the best one.
But how is the nutritional value on the Italian?
Oh, I don't give a. I mean, I care so much about the nutrition.
I think it's like
good.
50 calories higher or something for a foot long.
Of course you know that.
Yeah.
I don't go in there like Joe calculating. You know, it's good, so I get it.
That's how you know 100 Thieves is in safe hands. This guy's running numbers all day, every day, even while he's asleep.
Can't let me just eat in peace.
Yeah.
Spookz, you
All
want
right.
to go?
Sure. All right, so I'm Spookz, Samuel, or Sam. Go by Sam. I have not been with 100 Thieves for a long time. Just came from my Golden Guardian stint, which unfortunately had a little explosion in the off-season, as most of you guys probably know. But I'm glad I landed in safe hands. Oh, Subway. I used to get the chicken fillet. I also got Italian herbs and cheese. And then I kind of just try to get all the salads because like it was drilled into me from a young age to get the most value from my father. So like you have to just get every ingredient possible and then just slam it down. So that's how I go with my Subway.
Oh.
Grayson comes and says, "Oh, oh." You gotta remember your favorite sub, Grayson, when you introduce yourself.
Yeah.
When I was a kid?
Don't get it wrong.
No, just in
No,
general.
the best
You
Subway
don't
sub
eat
that you got.
Subway anymore?
Is this some sponsored content piece that I missed? or-
I'm just trying to help out the fam any way.
Well,
that
I
can.
love the meatball marinara. Oh, golly gee.
Great call.
Hashtag NA.
No, but unironically, when I was a kid, I ate the shit out of that.
Mhm.
That was good.
Is my lighting fine? Like, do I need to turn a light on?
No, dude, it's Discord.
It's
There's
fine.
only so high of a video quality that we're going to be able to possibly get on this.
All right, cool.
I'm not too worried. Most people are
That's
probably going to be
fantastic,
listening anyways.
Samuel.
Thank you.
The Christmas tree is a great touch.
Yeah, I'm trying to be festive. Although that wasn't me. That was my lovely missus. I'm too lazy to do that kind of thing.
Mrs. Claus.
Mrs. Claus, yeah. We don't have a chimney though, so.
Oh shit.
Wait,
Where
do
you
you guys
gonna
call
go?
them Do you guys call them chimneys?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sweet. Just double checking. Alright, we can move on.
So,
Thank you.
I guess, or Grace, I don't know if you want to give yourself like an introduction as into your role in addition to the sub
Sure.
that you eat, but
Oh yeah, sure. I guess maybe that would be apt rather than just my Subway menu selection. But yeah, I'm Grayson Goldenglue Gilmer. I was a pro player for around like 7 or 8 years. Played on a bunch of teams: C9, Team Liquid, Dignitas. Honestly, I played on way too many teams. I also coached at 100 Thieves for 2 years, coaching the academy program, and then took a bit of a break. Then coached DSGs as their head coach and general manager. We won the championship, and now I'm here being the new LCS head coach for 100 Thieves.
Did you read that off your second screen?
No,
That
dude,
was
it's
like,
all
it
up
was
here.
like that was damn, that was good. That was perfect. Well done.
my man is prepped on his PR. He knows.
Yeah,
No,
that was, I'm
I've been
impressed.
around the block.
He's got the LinkedIn bio ready to go at all times.
That's why he's the head.
You know,
That's why
I
he's the head
should
coach.
do. I should do LinkedIn. Honestly, I just don't bother with that website. But it seems like that's
You just
know,
need
what
to
people
hit
use
500 minimum connections and you're fine.
Would there ever actually
Interesting.
be a purpose for LinkedIn in esports though? I can't imagine that's what
I think it's for the kind of people who like want to feel important about esports. Like they want to go and like try to get on panels and speak. Because I've been to some I've been to some conventions a long time ago, like maybe 5-6 years. I don't remember which ones, but I just remember being on a panel to talk about esports, and I'm looking around who else I'm on the panel with. I'm like, who the fuck are you guys? Like, what do you guys know about
Yeah,
esports?
listen to the ego on you, Grayson.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying. Like, I'm just saying. No, like literally, not. You know, like, what do you do? Not.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I feel
think
like.
it's... Go ahead.
Go on, Joe. No, you
Okay.
go first.
I was just gonna say, if you're like a player or a coach, I would say it's like not entirely useful because like Twitter and other forms of socials is like the main way people stay connected. But if you're ever like doing partnerships or you're having like people reach out to you about like analyst jobs, marketing, or anything like that, it's still like an important resource to have because you're gonna have like people from several different demographics that want to join esports and don't really know how, and they don't really know that Twitter is like the main, I guess, like network that drives like esports fans forward. So it's good. It's just good to be, I guess, like socially well prepared. Grayson.
Damn,
So
you just made me
add
sound
that
like
to
an
your.
asshole.
No. I mean, it's just that's just how the regular world works. You know, Twitter isn't like LinkedIn for. Yeah, Twitter isn't LinkedIn for a lot of industries. So I would definitely update it.
Elon won't like you saying that. I mean, he's trying to add jobs to Twitter, which is hilarious, but
dear.
Yeah.
Oh.
it could work. You never know. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get this on the League of Legends path, because I guess we got a lot to cover in that front. Kick it back to last year and kind of getting to where we are now. I don't know if you want to start this, Junglejuice, given that you were around last year, and just walk me through 2022. If you want to touch on the offseason now, we can focus a little bit more on that later, but just like the year that was leading up to this point.
So reflections on this year. Wow. Okay. So I think we have to definitely touch on the offseason leading up to 2023 and like what that process looked like. So obviously you hear the word esports winter like thrown around all the time now. And I kind of wanted to just like touch really quick what that means. So basically you have a bunch of organizations, you have a bunch of VC people that owns like multi-billion-dollar sports teams that really feel like esports is their like new toy that is going to be like, and like an NBA slash like regular sports level franchise, right? So you have a ton of VC money coming in, and when you have that much money with like a small operating team, which a lot of esports teams were back in the day, it's like where can you use that to expand your resources? And a lot of that just went straight to player salaries because people thought winning was the quickest way to grow a community and grow the company. Whether or not that was the correct move, you know, we can always like talk tangentially about that. But we knew that like that source of income was like drying up ahead of the season. So I think 2023 is the first time where I've really felt like a divide between the players and a lot of different organizations on like what the market average spend was going to be. For us, we just came off like our championship year in 2021. We had like double final places in 2022. And we were also going into the third year of like a lot of these guys' contract, which is generally the highest paid contracts. And we just knew that if we opted into that, we would end up in a similar situation with like EG, where they have one of the highest payrolls in the league, and they have to like pivot. And I don't think the pivot was purely just because of, you know, their not meeting expectations, right? I think a lot of it had to do with like how they control their finances. So for us, I think a large part of it was like, what is the best we can do? Because we can't really honor these third-year contracts anymore, right? So we have to let these guys go, help them find new homes. So we really tried to prop up like Boostio and Tenacity, who've been on our programs for a really long time. This year was really interesting. I think the main thing that a lot of fans have touched on is like, why isn't Tenacity and Boostio on the team again for 2024? So again, I think having people on multi-year contracts in 2023 was like super unrealistic. And even if they were on second-year contracts, no one is honoring those second-year numbers because the market like completely shifted this year, right? So if you do see players on returning teams, they're likely on like a contract that they renegotiated ahead of the season. So even if like a second year was on the GCD, none of them can really be honored by the organizations unless they're being incredibly irresponsible. So that's why a lot of our contracts, they were structured for 1-year deals in 2023. And I think we fixed a lot of that in 2024 moving forward. Like we have pretty decent commitments from everybody. But yeah, honestly, it was a really cool program. I think Peter coming back from retirement was super cool. Obviously, Soren retiring in the middle of the year kind of put us in a little bit of a whirlwind. But I think it's like a pretty similar roster building philosophy we had last year, where we have a lot of promising rookies and we're trying to surround them with pretty experienced players. And this time around, we really just want to give them an actual amount of time to actually develop because honestly, summer was kind of a disaster for us. Like we didn't have our coaching staff or our mid laner until the middle of the regular season. So didn't really get to develop synergy throughout the year and didn't really get like the proper like I guess time to like build an actual team. Just wasn't enough time. So, I think a lot of fans were disappointed in our summer results. But I think process-wise, we're looking to do a lot of things similarly, just in a timeline that's way more consistent and way more safe.
Spookz, you were also there last year, notably playing against us, kicking our ass, relatively speaking. Not sure what the 100 Thieves record was against Golden Guardians last year, but I don't remember it being good.
Yeah, it wasn't good. Wasn't good.
How's it feel to be on the other side of the pond coming into this year? Does it make you nervous joining the team that you beat so often?
No, I mean, 100 Thieves is always. I mean, Golden Guardians and 100 Thieves have always had a kind of interesting little history together. We've shared some rosters. And,
Oh, that's what we're
so,
God.
so we've all worked with a lot of the same players together. Immediately coming into 100 Thieves, like I could already notice like a significant step up in terms of how everything was set out. Like as soon as I joined the team, for example, my Liquid PD was just updated, and I was like, "What the hell?" Like everything feels just way more professional at 100 Thieves and Golden Guardians. I think we just didn't have the resources at Golden Guardians that they do here. So the transition's been really smooth. Joe and Grayson have been amazing to like onboard me. So in terms of like actual league results, that'll be to be determined. But coming into this organization has been really such a pleasant experience for me so far. So definitely happy to be here.
Grayson, you were with the team at the beginning of the year last year. Academy gets cut. You go with the Sky's Toast for the second half of the year. Obviously, you guys crush it, but now you're coming back. When things happen the way they did, post spring going into summer, was there always a goal to come back, or is it just really nice that it all lined up this way?
Yeah, honestly, I'd have to rewind just a little bit more because after the 2 years, so like before the spring, I decided to take a break from coaching. I didn't coach 100 Thieves in the spring for the academy team, and I wasn't sure I was going to come back to coaching. To be honest, I wasn't sure if like I was going to continue doing that. I feel like after 2 years and into my coaching on the academy team, and I didn't get like any LCS offers, I was like pretty demotivated. So I wasn't sure if I was going to come back, and I was like, yeah, just pretty unconfident. And then the DSG thing kind of just popped up, and it was more so like a thing I just thought it would be fun, like a fun project, and it did totally bring back, and maybe not even bring back. Like I think that was the time where I really appreciated coaching. I think a lot more for what it was after I took a break, and that honestly couldn't have went better. I wasn't sure it was going to go well, to be honest. Like I didn't play League, wasn't touching League for like 6-7 months prior to joining DSG, and then it was like build a team in a week and see what our matches are next week. Let's see what we can do. So I think that process gave me a lot of confidence, and like what I was doing was like right and also like reproducible. And yeah, I would say it honestly. Super lucky the way that things worked out because got the DSG opportunity, went great, and then I was able to join 100 Thieves and try to like reproduce the success that I've had. So yeah, I'm just really grateful for that, I suppose.
How many rings you got, Grayson, in the Challenger League? 2? 3?
I think it's 2. Yeah, it's 2.
2 rings. 2 out of
as
how many?
as a coach, yeah.
Like, nice.
And then I was in the finals 3 out of 5 times that I wasn't there.
Shit.
Yeah.
There you go. That's a pretty good track record.
It was fun watching 100 Thieves Academy for a bit there. Like there was a
Yeah.
good stretch of like 2 years where it just felt like you could constantly tune into a game and it was just going to be fun and entertaining no matter what, whether we won it or not.
Yeah, it was fun because we did it with different rosters too, where I feel like we swapped it up. I feel like Team Liquid was always what I saw as like our biggest rival for that whole 2 years, but I feel like they had a lot more veteran pieces usually. I think they had Armao for most of the 2 years, just like 1v9ing and Challenger. So it was fun that like we got to do it with a bunch of different guys too, I think.
They also had Eyla,
Yeah.
so
They also had Eyla, and Eyla was a
welcome,
bit
welcome,
big.
Eyla.
Do you know my one loss in finals? It was fucking Eyla in game 5, smurfing on me. So,
Ayla's he's a bit of a demon.
yeah.
Paul, you got anything for 2023 that you want to go over before we kick it to the off season?
I mean, with 100 Thieves, kind of just, we've mainly touched on most of it, but it's also kind of with River going over there. How does that feel for you, Spookz? Mainly like bringing him back as a leader and a veteran. Are you very confident in his leadership style and how he takes over a game?
Yeah, I mean, honestly speaking, I think River is like almost like the core piece of our roster last year. Like Jay, who he like those two really led like the direction of our team. And I think Jay's leadership style was very, very verbal. Obviously, he was a big communicator. He's constantly giving people feedback. And I think River is a leader in a different manner. Like he is so good and so consistent, and like he's so smart about the game that he kind of makes people play to his level, and he like sets a standard of like how well and consistently you need to play in scrims. And I feel like having someone like that with a rookie roster is just going to make them feel like they need to work extra hard to get to his level. So yeah, I mean, I'm super grateful that we were able to get River over here as well. Because you know, wherever River goes, he seems to make something happen.
You have the
Yep.
funniest camera pause that I think I've ever seen.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
dude. I'll
It
just
is-
leave it like this.
It is full Alvin and the Chipmunks, Bucktooth, like wide open.
I don't know what's wrong with my webcam. Let's see.
Unfortunate.
Got a little connection issue.
Just how
Anyway.
it is. My other question is kind of jumping back into Ayla. Is how do you all, I guess, as a group, feel about kind of rebounding him? Because I know, like last year for his kind of one of his big debuts, he was kind of an odd focal point sometimes on Twitter, but a lot of people were coming at him and trying to give him heat, and then he looked pretty good on EG. So,
Until he
do you guys
ended
feel like you can
Vulcan's
keep
social
pushing him?
media career.
Okay, yeah, that's
Big
that's
show.
the way to say it. But
Honestly,
do you guys feel
if
like
it-
you can push him?
For Ayla to like, I feel like a lot of he's not a younger player. He's been around a long time. Like some people realize that like he was playing in O's for I think it was like 3 to 4 years before he came across LCS. So he's not a rookie. But for him to throw shade and then kind of back it up the next split, like you gotta give some respect, because you know when you're Ayla with Vulcan having like being the crowd favorite that you're gonna get a lot of backlash. And most younger players typically crumble. I think even like recently, like players like APA throwing shade and then crumbling a little bit. It's not hard to back up. So I put some respect on his name for that.
Totally. Yeah. And I was just gonna say briefly that like in my 2 years of coaching 100 Thieves, I feel like Ayla was always the like the number one other support besides Busio. I feel like Busio and Eyla were like the most exciting support. So I think I got to coach Busio for a year, and I'm pretty excited to now like be on the flip side of coaching Eyla.
Yeah. And I think for supports, we honestly had like a ton of supports we were looking at. I'm pretty sure it's like leaked on like Wooloo, like Sheep about like all the supports we were looking at. Eyla, I think, just like surprised us in our scouting. Like there was a lot of things that happened. There was like candidates that we were looking at earlier in the off season. Some of those like options like fell through, but we were like we had the time to look at all the candidates really closely. And I think I'm being like super honest when I say like the coaching staff and I were like pretty blown away, and we're like very happy that we did our due diligence in terms of like watching all the players' footage. Because when we scouted Eyla, we weren't really expecting him to look as good as he did. Just because, yeah, I think when you look at FlyQuest, when you look at the whole situation in spring of him having swapped out time with Winsome, I think anyone that plays like League professionally knew that like Eyla was probably a better individual player. But like people were like, why are they having better results with Winsome, right? And then obviously he was like kind of under the radar even with EG because like they kind of collapsed in the second half of summer split. So it's like, what happened to this player? He was like so promising in academy. He's always been good in nose. And then this year in 2023, it looks like both the second half of both the regular season games kind of went really poorly. Like what really happened? I mean, I don't know. When we watched all of his individual like footage and all of the team fights and all the metrics that we measure players, he was still performing really, really well. So honestly, I'm super excited and I'm very happy with where we ended up with this.
So expanding that then to the full roster, for those that might not be aware or may live under a rock for some godforsaken reason, the full roster for 100 Thieves going into next year is Sniper in the top lane, in jungle. Why really the time comes and I start
Riv,
blanking on this.
big Riv.
River in the jungle, Quid returning in the mid lane, in the bot lane you have big ol' Meech, and then you have in support Eyla, who we just talked about. Walk me through the construction of this roster. Walk me through your thoughts on like the individual players as well as like them meshing together as a team.
Is this directed to anyone or
anyone that wants to chat it? This is open ended.
Okay, Joey, it sounded like you wanted to hit it.
Yeah, I think I'll let Grayson touch on this as well. But I will just say when it comes to like roster building, obviously there's like two key components. It's like for me, obviously the first component is like the financial barriers. It's like what is the budget that you have for the year and like what are you able to do? And then the second core piece of that is like who are like the highest priority targets that are going to be available, right? So Jojo Pen was like basically like there's a small buyout for Jojo Pen or a big buyout, I'm not really sure, but he was going to be available in this market because like EG was going to be removed from the league, right? So Jojo Pen was like a really high priority list for basically everyone in the league. But again, when you're competing with like the top spinners in the league, you have to kind of reassess like what your realistic priority targets are. So for us, when we found out that Golden Guardians, unfortunately, Samuel is like going through this explosion. There's a lot of interesting players in the GS roster. Like just going top to bottom, I think Licorice had one of the most insane years I've ever seen from like a rebound from a player. Like I think everyone will talk about Dokla and like Energy's resurgence, but I don't think anyone's really like paying too much attention to like how much Licorice actually like developed over the course of this year. You had River, who I think was probably a top 2 jungler in the LCS. And yeah, just a lot of like interesting free agents. So I think for me and Grayson, we were always looking at like a developmental roster building route, just because like Grayson's like expertise is working with those kind of roster builds, like historically. But when River became available, I think it was like a no-brainer for us that like we need to put all other roles on pause. It's like if we can get River, we need to get River. Like that was our number one priority in the roster build. And then kind of all the pieces kind of like fell pretty naturally after that. And then I think Grayson, you can kind of touch on the rest.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Golden Guardians blowing up was great for me. Fantastic. Like I didn't think I was going to be able to. I mean, River is such a top tier jungle. The fact that I think we got him, I'm just super excited about that. And even Spookz, like I didn't think Spookz was going to be available, considering how well of a job he did last year, and I'm really excited to work with him as well. So I think that was honestly probably the core thing that happened in the offseason that really I feel like let us get where we are today, and I'm really happy about it. I mean, I think a lot of the other pieces were like, GeneralSniper is kind of a no-brainer, was in the org for a long time, has been growing there. I think Quid is another kind of like relatively interesting one, and getting River and Quid together definitely I think makes sense. And I think that Quid, he had a kind of like iffy showing initially, but he also was coming in mid-split to a team, like wasn't even here at the beginning and didn't really get a fair shot. And the kid's obviously talented. So, I think that one is like, it is typically pretty hard to find like mid laners, North American mid laners. I mean, I know it very well. A lot of players, it's hard. It's really hard to break into the barrier of LCS as an NA mid laner because every single team's just importing the most cracked guys from around the world. So it's pretty hard to like break into that level of excellence. And I think Meech and Eyla is also going to be pretty fun. Worked with Meech on DSG. We won the Challenger League together, and I think he was one of the biggest components to that championship. And one of the things I was really impressed with him is that we he basically had no difference from playing on stage versus playing remote. And you have to think that all of our matches we played were remote, and he was playing well. And then when we played on stage, which is like when you only play one match of the whole season on stage, it doesn't matter what LCS in academy or whatever. It's a lot of pressure your first time playing on stage, and he was cracked. So that was like really impressive to me because that's a whole nother barrier to entry to pro play. It's like it doesn't matter how good you are if you can't do it on stage, you know. And Eyla is just really, really solid. I'm excited to play with them. So that's kind of like the breakdown of picking up the roster. You know, we were thinking about a lot of different iterations. I really feel like we did our due diligence and in the process of building this roster, and I'm really happy where we ended up.
I think Quid is going to be the biggest point of contention for most people. Like the community is going to look at it, and I won't shy away from the fact that I criticized his play at the end of last year and was saying, like, if you're like from a fan perspective, if you were looking at it, he was one of the first people that you looked at as a possible option to change. What would you say to, now that the roster's out, now that you know that you're sticking with them, what would you say to the Quid haters out there that are popping up that are just saying this ain't the guy, should have made a different move?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I would look to is just look at the like Golden Guardian success. I think having like a Korean mid laner plus a Korean jungle who can communicate well together is going to be really important to how well the mid laner can do. And not even, I mean, Closer's a great jungler, but if you can't communicate very well to each other and you're new to America, it's going to be like difficult to perform at your best. So I think like if you saw how well Gory and River played together, it's kind of like a similar mindset. And like I think Quid is going to be set up more to succeed this year than he was last year.
Could I add
Yeah.
something as well? I mean, I'm not great to speak on Quid because obviously I didn't work with him, but I feel like people were asking me the same question about Licorice and Stixay, like at the end or the start of last year. Obviously, like slightly different situation, but they weren't performing as well as they needed to, and people were like, "Why aren't you guys replacing those pieces?" Sometimes like people just need time. Like if you look at traditional sports and like a rookie comes in and performs for half a season and isn't performing well, they don't just throw them out the back door most of the time. I feel like esports has this kind of really unhealthy habit of just replacing people at the first moment they can. So I feel like even though I can't speak too much to how he is yet, and I'm going to work with him soon, I think giving players time to grow and get used to the culture and fit into one team environment is really important. And it's going to be, and I think maybe this will be the year that he actually shines.
Yeah, I would say for Quid haters out there, I think that hate is honestly kind of warranted, if I'm being honest. Like honestly, like when I'm like looking from behind the scenes, like I have context and everything, but when you're a fan, all you care about is like on stage results, right? So yeah, he came in the middle of the split, didn't have a great start, but I think he like started looking much better towards the second half of the split. But you kind of have to take the context here from my perspective is like he is an exceptionally mechanically talented player. All of our players like vouch for him in our like postseason evaluations. That he is like individually really talented. Like we've all seen what he's capable of performing in on scrims, and obviously we're working on translating that to stage. But yeah, I think it's a lot to Sam's point of like we brought this like Korean rookie from like South Korea, right? He got to play in LCS for maybe about 4 weeks because we had so many visa issues. Because the Peterson thing kind of happened at a very sensitive time. So for us to like field him for 4 weeks without like much like building rapport with him, to just like throw him out because like the environment wasn't really set up to succeed, I think would also just set like a terrible like culture precedent for the organization, right? It's like why would rookies ever take chances on us if this is how we like treat people in general? So we think he has what it takes. We're excited to give him a second chance. And I think he's going to be surrounded with River. So he's going to be surrounded by honestly just a jungler that's been consistently performing last year, right? Because I think for us this last year, our team, even outside of Quid, we had a lot of problems. We had a lot of games like pre 15 minutes where we were just like blown out in the early game. So I think this is like really us trying to like kind of like create a new slate. And I really want to be able to showcase like what we saw in Quid when we picked him up. Because funnily enough, I think Quid was actually supposed to be the mid laner for Golden Guardians at one point, but Quid actually just didn't want to come to the US. I think like earlier in 2023. So there's a little bit of like history / context for you guys there, but it is kind of interesting.
So we pseudo got another one from Spookz. That's what I'm hearing.
Any chance for us to get pieces that Golden Guardians wants or had? 100 Thieves always is looking for those opportunities.
100 Thieves is in trouble next year. There's no Golden Guardians.
No one to take them.
Their scout team is gone.
Yeah.
I have a question for Paul. You gave me so much shit throughout the entire year for 100 Thieves being the Immortals, talent development squad in disguise, constantly making fun of me for being willing to support despite the adverse results. Does what they just said instill any more confidence in you, or at least at a minimum make that I don't have to deal with this shit for another year? Or
I mean, you'll still get it from me just because of who I am. But either way, I mean, I think you guys are definitely a coaching staff that when you were announced, I was like, oh, this is probably one of the better ones in the league. Just because of the fact that Goldenglue is I don't want to be stroking people off, but at the same time, you guys have a lot of talent in the sense like Goldenglue's been winning a lot in Academy, and then Spookz obviously just goes and gets like second in LCS, which was kind of out of nowhere. I will say, we were big GGS haters show.
You and a lot of other people, don't worry.
We were taking a lot of bets and losing a lot of bets on GGS games, and it was getting old.
That's some bull, because I put Golden Guardian 7th in summer by the end. Had the collapse happened like 2 weeks prior, I would have been right. But no, I look like a jackass instead.
Yeah, but I think the biggest thing that gives me hope in 100 Thieves moving forward is that you guys have been pretty open about the fact that you have to keep some of your rookies now, and you are developing the rookies really well, because from an outsider perspective, the tenacity stuff would always just look off to you because like we don't have anything behind the scenes, so we're just going off of what we see. But now that there's kind of this doubling down on rookie roster in a way, with 100 Thieves or with Sniper kind of being the face of it and kind of being this really hyped up prospect for a few years now, like it does make you believe a bit more.
Speaking of that,
yeah,
I think it's a good time to talk about the man himself, the guy that's been hyped up, at least for me, for about 100 Thieves signed him 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
I've been calling this shot since the moment that happened, that whether people like it or not, whether he's ready or not, I think you put him in immediately. The second that he comes of age, the experience of being on stage will be more valuable to me than anything he could get in Academy. Assuming he's going to be your guy for, with a guy like him, you just assume that he's going to be your franchise player, your star, your face, your QB that you draft at #1. And even if it doesn't work out, you hope that it will for 10 plus years. What should fans' expectations be of him at the start of the split and then at the end of the year as well? Like, what's a meaningful, what should we be looking for, like, even if it does start off rough, to get to see signs that yes, this is still going to be the guy long term no matter what?
Just
Grayson,
for anybody?
I think Grayson, Sam, you guys can talk about expectations. I also can.
Sure, I can start. Yeah, I mean, so I haven't worked with Sniper before. This is gonna be my first time working with him, and from watching his games, he's obviously very promising and very talented mechanically in fights. I think that he's going in really fresh. He hasn't even played a split of Academy. I think he played half a split, 100 Thieves. So I feel like this might be one of the most fresh people to the LCS. So I think what I'm trying to do is definitely tame down expectations immediately, because there's a lot of adjustment that you need to do to just be in LCS. I think this guy's definitely talented and definitely has a bright future. But I don't think that he's instantly going to come in and be solo killing every top laner. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can add to that as well. I think if you look at Worlds this year, I'm pretty sure this was one of the years where experienced players were the most successful they've been in a long time. Where you look at like pretty much all of the top world's rosters, they had so much like depth of experience. So if that tells you anything, it tells you that experience is important. So naturally, he's not going to come in immediately and just be like the god of top lane. Although that is an exciting prospect to have. I do think rookies come in, like for example, Jojo. They come in with this like freshness, where they can surprise people, and they can be really entertaining to watch. And I think he naturally plays to that kind of surprise factor. So I think he'll be really entertaining, but I think he'll need a lot of time to just adapt and learn from coaches and his peers. So yeah, he's just an exciting prospect overall.
Yeah. I think JoJo is like a pretty cool one to look at. I think even like Tenacity is a cool one to look at, right? It's like you have these guys and their viewpoint on like how to win the game or like how to look good or like how to perform is like it's like so raw that it's has a lot of variance and they're just doing whatever they feel is right rather than like some form factor that the coaching staff are starting to instill on them. So you might see some solo kills and you might see like individual moments of brilliance, but I think across all of the rookies, like what you'll see in their like first or couple of splits is that they really have a hard time adjusting to like the team play aspect of the game. So especially even with like players like Jojo and Fudge, I think Fudge especially more so, but they usually have like okay moments in like the early game, and they have like really shining moments like in their laning phases where they're able to like showcase that, and then later stages of the game they kind of if they're not set up properly in the fights, they look really really lost. So I think for us, like what we're trying to set expectations there is like, yeah, there is a lot of hype, but this is one of the freshest players to ever touch foot into the LCS. So we just want to like allow him to like have that space to grow, feel safe, feel like he can go out there and like fail, right? You can go out there, fail a couple of times, come back, like learn from it. And we're really looking at like a long-term pipeline here. So we just want to provide the like safe culture for them to actually like try and do things without like feeling like they have to play to like not lose, because there's like a huge difference between like playing to win and then playing to like not lose the game.
Yeah, and on like Joe's point as well, I feel like there's been a few teams in the history of LCS that have gone down that line of like make everything very systematic, make everything really robotic. But I think League of Legends in general just has this certain level of naturalness in the game where like if you see a good angle, you need to not question whether you're going to take that angle or not. So providing that kind of environment for a sniper in his first LCS games is going to be really important. And I feel like that's the same kind of environment someone like Jojo had. Like you could just see it when you were watching. He wasn't thinking, oh shit, like I need to do X, Y, Z first before I make this play, and then misses the angles. So that's something really important for us to make Sniper feel like he can do as well.
All this talk of rookies is taking me back to EG's spring playoff run, which, wow, heartbreaking as a 100 Thieves fan, because they whooped our ass pretty bad. God, that was a fun time.
Yeah. Not in the 100 Thieves box when I was there, but everyone else was having a good time.
Not as a fan watching either. Like after watching them reverse sweep TL, it was like, oh no. Or not.
That was Dan. Was that
3-0? Sorry.
When was Danny? Which series was Danny Penta?
That was Danny.
That
was
Danny.
Danny.
That was the Danny.
That was really
the
fun.
Danny Jinx pentakill.
That was
really fun.
2022.
What was the takeaway in the review there, Joe? Do you remember?
I actually remember. I think Vic said himself he was getting gapped so hard. But basically it's like that meta was like Zeri Sivir. I think it was like a Jinx. It was just like a bunch of carries. And Danny was like terrible in laning phase. So we could get a solo kill on the guy. We could be up like 70 CS in like 15 minutes. We could be up a tower. And like I think their entire game plan with like Danny on that rookie team was, even if we're like multiple thousands of gold behind, like you just stall until like Danny has like somewhat close items to the enemy to carry like 2.5 items to 3 items, or 2 items to 2.5, like 3 items, and he'll still like do so much more that like you can like confidently trust that he'll carry the game. It was honestly crazy.
He had the X factor.
Yeah, he was. it was crazy.
Is there? I mean, I'm not as familiar with league or like league history beyond 2018. Whenever I started following consistently, is there a player that has ever had like that level of the game hits a certain time and they will take over no matter what? That has
Double
ever played?
lift, right? Wasn't that double lift?
No,
I
I
never
think
saw
double
Prime
lift.
double lift.
No, I think Prime double lift, dude. Like he was like so far ahead of every other bot lane in North America that like other bot lanes couldn't even breathe in laning phase. Like they would just like take your tower, take the top tower. They would take every single tower in the game, would just be over.
Actually, you know who I think does fit that criteria a bit? As I think Sneaky was always slept on. Like Sneaky would never pop off in lane, not really, but he would always be really, really solid in team fights.
Oh yeah.
But
that's
no one
a good
really
one.
gave him much credit. I feel he didn't have like the same juice that I mean. Well, he had a ton of fans, but like everyone's like, oh my god, Danny team fight, you know.
What about Froggen? Like
Yeah.
late game
I feel
Froggen
like
on like.
I feel like when you
That's like
when
if
you
we're going
really-
back that far. Yeah, how far are we going back?
That's
Okay.
that's like
2012?
champion. That's just champion diff, right?
Yeah,
Like
that
if
is
you're
yeah.
playing if you're playing a Nivea, you're like, yeah, he's gonna get prio all lane phase and dive my side laners. But if they throw once, I might carry the game.
Build the ice wall.
Yeah.
Build the wall.
I've never seen a game of Froggen, or I've never seen him play ever. And the only time that I've ever seen him was actually at Electric Zoo in New York this past year. The group of friends that I went with just rolled.
That's awesome.
And my friend's like, "Hey, this is Froggen, by the way." I was like, "Okay." You just randomly spring that on me when I'm shirtless dancing in the middle of a music festival, and
Yeah,
just all of a sudden-
you're getting rowdy, huh?
it was fun. I mean, I don't take shit. I just enjoy the music and have a good time.
I love Henrik. Henrik's fun.
He was hilarious. Like that, it was just, dude's a bro. The second you started talking
He
to
is
him,
a bro.
he just accepts you as if you're his blood and kin. It's unbelievable.
He is a bro. I agree with that.
Paul, anything you
Yeah,
got
but-
on like players, stuff like that? I want to make sure I'm cutting you because I could just talk forever.
Well, I was wondering if any of you had seen that Twitter thread, because Sniper put out his Riven play that was like actually pretty sick, and then EU West Teemo main, like Challenger Teemo main, put this thing saying like he's not actually that good. This play isn't that
really?
sick. Yeah.
Oh,
and-
is it the Riven play where he gets hit by every single skill shot and he still lives?
Yes.
Yeah, that I mean that was a very typical Riven play, guys. Like it
Yes.
wasn't. I'm sorry. I think Ryan's like right next to me. He's probably like
Hilarious.
laughing to himself right now. I saw that clip, dude. He got like that Thresh was owning him. Honestly, like predicted every single hook. But yeah, when your Riven is that far ahead with like triple like
Yeah.
sustained like armor items against like I don't know, it was like Ezreal or Aatrox or something.
With
Yep.
Ezreal.
Like, yeah, you're never gonna die.
But
So yeah,
inside-
like he presses buttons. He presses buttons, but like, was it like some sick play? No, I've seen him do way cooler stuff. True.
Yeah.
But in the end, who got the most Twitter impressions? So
Our
we
boy.
all know who the real winner is here.
Yeah.
No, Ryan is the winner because like it's about winning championships eventually and community, right? So those are the two focal points. So he's hitting both.
He's already tapped into the EU West mines.
Yeah.
And if he can survive their solo queue during MSI, he will be the champion.
Okay.
Oh god. Okay. Well, I guess now that we've pretty much kind of covered all the players, I wanted to get more into like you guys individually, and something that we don't really hear a lot of conversation. Like we hear a lot, like Cloud9 released their 48-minute whatever it was video today on like the C9 systems, but I don't feel like there's a lot of talk on like individual coaching philosophies and like what is important to you. Like for example, for those that might be watching for the first time and don't know, I'm a PGA golf professional. I don't use it anymore, but like I'm licensed to teach. And one of the key things that you learn when learning to teach is that there's only so many things that you can prioritize at one time when teaching somebody. You put too much in somebody's head, they're going to overthink. It's just not worth it. So you need to have 1 to 3 core principles and philosophies about the golf swing that you're going to try and instill in people. And that's your main philosophy to go with. For Goldenglue, for Spookz, for anybody that wants to touch on it, do you have core philosophies when it comes to coaching on how you see the game, how you want to see it executed on the Rift, on stage? Like, what is your unique style that would separate you from other coaches?
Do you want to start, Sam?
Yeah, sure. The way I've seen League from the very start is there is ways to make the game systematic, and there are ways in which the game should feel natural, kind of like what I was touching on before with the rookie players. And I think for us at the very start, it's going to be about focusing more on creating those systems. But my general coaching philosophy is finding a good middle ground there. I think it's really important for players to be able to express themselves in the game, or else you essentially just get. You could essentially hire anyone to do plug and play that exact system that you set them. We could go into a lot of depth about like how exactly you go about doing those things, but overall coaching philosophy is about finding the middle ground about between the naturalness and the unnaturalness of the game.
Yeah. I guess to talk a little bit about my coaching philosophy, I feel like a couple things that I really believe in. One thing that I think that I've done a good job at, and I think it's one of my skills, is kind of like simplifying League of Legends. I think League of Legends can be like infinitely complicated, because you're always going to be lacking information when you're playing the game. And I think trying to simplify the game into terms that are like really easy, like not really easy, but easier to understand, and like kind of like doesn't necessarily have to be just purely systematic, but just understanding the big picture in a simple way. That's something that I really believe in trying to like instill in the players, of like not making things too complicated, because you're already thinking about like a million things when you're playing the game. So if you have to think about a whole nother, like my coach is telling me I have to do A, B, C, D, E, F before I can go hit Baron or something, I think it's too much and it's not actually effective. So kind of like simplifying super complicated things. And then the other one that I really believe in is just like a growth mindset, and just really trying to instill that into my players. The fact that you can always be better. There's always things to do better in every game. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was so drawn as a player, is just like you always have this feeling is there's more to improve on, because how infinitely complex the game is. I feel like those are like two of my really core values that I think, especially with our rookie roster, being able to do that, being able to simplify the game, and then also kind of like focus on where they can improve and what's going to be the biggest margin, improving your lane phase, or whether it's like improving out of lane and like team fighting, like what's going to have the biggest impact, because there's going to be so many things we need to work on, I think. So those are like two of my core beliefs.
Oh, I had something as well. I think a uniqueness that we will bring between Grayson and I to this team that maybe other teams will utilize as well is League of Legends is like you're compared to traditional sports where you're an athlete, right? And you're bringing like your physical capacity to the sport. League of Legends is all entirely in the mind, essentially. I mean, you're clicking your buttons, and like maybe if you have slightly more nimble fingers, it helps you in some capacity. Not fat finger, you're a Flash or something. But the game is entirely mind based, and managing how you treat yourself on a day-to-day basis over the course of a very long year of 6 day week long hours grinding, you need coaches who can manage that. We faced a lot of issues this year from going from regular season straight into MSI, straight into Split 2, straight into Worlds with burnout, obviously. And the biggest action you can make against burnout is managing how people negotiate their day-to-day from the get-go and setting really good standards. And that's something I think we're going to put a lot of attention to, and I think we'll be on top of better than most coaching staff.
I was going to ask you about that separately, because I remember you and I had a conversation post MSI. I think it was the series that you guys got knocked out. We talked afterwards. I asked how like things were going, and you were like, burnout is like kicking our ass. And I was like, that's LCS Summer Split begins in like 2 weeks. If burnouts get like kicking in now, I don't want to know what the blitz is going to be like of turning around immediately for a domestic split. Now, luckily, I don't know whether it's lucky or not, but the player strike happened. I don't know if that bought you guys more time, but it was like you are uniquely qualified after this last year to like be able to handle burnout, to know what that's like, and try and manage expectations. Because if you want to go far in the year, it's a hard fucking schedule.
Yeah, I will say, our roster was a lot different. I feel like how do I draw a comparison? When you're a rookie and you're coming in to Pro League of Legends and your entire life is essentially devoted to League and all you want to do is wake up and play League, you almost have this like natural ability to just grind your way through it. But when you're like a family man, which essentially like who he was a little bit, Licorice was a little bit, and then we also had 2 Koreans that didn't get to go home. It was a lot different. Not a lot different of a situation, but it was quite different of a situation than what we have now. So I think we'll have a slightly easier time navigating those types of things. But when it comes to managing burnout, the 2 big factors are essentially time investment and setting a good culture of mindfulness and physical health from the get-go. I think we could have done a lot more on the end of making sure our players were set in their routines. I think particularly with Gory, we didn't do a good enough job of setting him on the right track because he's still a lot younger of a guy and he was moving to a foreign country. We helped him in a lot of ways, but I think we could have helped him a lot more. And I think he suffered a little bit towards the end. But yeah, I mean, that was my first year of head coaching, and I learned a lot in that capacity. So hoping to be able to transition some of those lessons to these younger guys.
Kaimera, I got one for you. We talk about burnout and the workload on the player side. What's it like on the staff side? Like,
I think
'cause
it.
I know you
Oh,
guys
just go
probably
ahead.
work. I don't know if it's the same hours or worse because you have to put in more work behind the scenes before you even see anything public facing. Like,
I think it can be really bad. I think years like the 2021 year where we like won, for example, you end up, you have your entire summer split. You go into Worlds, that's a ton more work. And then if you end up going to Worlds and then you also have to go into an off season right after that, that really stacks up. Like, for example, we talked about how that year and in the 2022 year as well, there can be a lot of scouting going into an off season. And there's a really short turnaround time if you also went to an international tournament at the same time. So I've had off seasons where it's been really hard to just go straight from being in competitive mode to now we're in scouting mode. And we have beyond popular belief for some reason, we actually do a lot of due diligence in the way that we put together our rosters, and we're pretty thorough about it. And that just requires a lot of time and work. So I've gotten better over the years, and I'm sure Joe has too, around balancing our entire year around knowing we're going to be working, outside of holidays pretty much year round. There's pretty much always something to do. We don't really have like a true off season. We just have different work at different times of the year. But yeah, I don't know. I think we've gotten a lot better at it.
Paul, you got anything?
Yeah, kind of just to hit Kai again, wondering what it's like having to be a strategic coach for a team that is going from having someday double lift Bjergsen to now this younger roster. Does a lot have to change for you to get in principals, or is that more of just head coach and assistant coach?
Is this for
Sorry?
me?
No, it
Or is
was
this
for
me?
Kaimera. Just like, is there a lot he has to do strategically to get them up to a speed or a place where he wants, or
I wouldn't say strategically so much. There are certain parts of the game that I like try and do a lot of helpful work on that I feel like are a lot more pattern based, a lot more system based, you would think. And that's a lot of like early game related stuff. But I think a lot of the work with coaches is dealing with a lot of the more like variable parts of the game and team fighting and stuff like that. So once a team is better developed, there's a lot more like data side things that really need to be handled that coaches don't want to have to spend any time on. You know, they need to be able to look stuff up fast, get answers to statistical questions and stuff like that really quickly. So yeah, I mean, once I've handled sort of the early parts of the game that I think I can cover a lot of the information for, you know, a lot of it is just on the coaches at that point, and I just try and make that smoother as much as I can.
Goldenglue, question for you.
Let's hit it.
You were a player under Spookz' system, right? Back in
Yeah.
the Golden Guardian.
Were you head coach?
No, I didn't even work. So my role on the year Grayson was playing was two-way player coach, and it was essentially to
Right.
work. It was to work between academy and LCS, and essentially, like I guess for an example, I was responsible for moving Huhi up from academy to LCS, and then my role is a little bit flexible in the sense of like if Nick and Nero wanted me to do things like individual notes and that kind of stuff, I would do that. So I wouldn't say Grace and I worked together significantly then, but we definitely did work together.
Okay, so
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no like punishment that you want to like. Now you technically have the chance to get back at him if you want.
Yeah, you're my boss now, Grayson.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I did get benched from Golden Guardians after one split, Samuel. Maybe it's time to get revenge now. No, I'm just kidding.
Whoa.
Shit.
No, I mean, I feel like when I was on Golden Guardians, definitely was not my highlight. Honestly, most of those memories are blocked out. I don't really remember much from playing the Golden Guardians.
Trauma
It was
blocked.
not the best of times. So I honestly have zero memory of like anything that Sam or Choo Choo's or Nair, like any of the coaches there. Honestly, I don't really remember.
That sounds like some trauma, Grayson.
Yeah,
We might need
maybe.
to take some.
I just remember that like everyone thought we were gonna be 10th and we made playoffs, so we definitely did better than expected. Could be similar to this season. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, 10th is impossible.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's
Well,
true.
Oh,
It would
you
be
are-
very impressive if we got 10th.
The power
Well, hey,
rankings
team.
so far have been
I've
not
been-
kind.
I've been keeping fucking notes. All of them.
Dave is
Should.
writing everyone down.
Anybody that puts 100 Thieves at 10th or 8th is going on the list. I don't give a shit. You want to put us in the same category as Dig, Immortals, Shopify? Sure. I'm not going to fight you on that. Like my personal expectation. I don't know if you guys are like cover your ears, but it's 5th, 6th by the end of spring. And I think higher uptick in summer, assuming we like show growth and progression as the year goes on. But like, I'm not gonna be pissed at somebody for putting 5th, 6th. Like that's fine and understandable given the other rosters that are out there. But like, 8th, fucking 8th. Have we looked at Dig's roster? Are you kidding me? Nah,
Yeah,
I refuse to.
I was
I-
surprised. But
Okay,
honestly,
so yeah.
though, it's a great place to be. It's a
I
great
love
place
these
to be.
fights. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
it's like everyone's expecting us to be 8th. It's like, all right, time to have some fun and upset some people, you know?
I was gonna say like it's because I'm on the roster. Literally every
True.
single roster I've been on has been power ranked like last place. I'm pretty sure.
Actually, though, you're
Yeah.
the curse.
Well,
I
you
think,
weren't on Immortals. I think Immortals got 10th power ranking every split for like the last 2 years.
I
No,
mean,
dude,
it's
there's
pretty
no way.
accurate.
There's no way. I swear.
No,
No,
okay,
we
like
were
next
10th
time.
for sure. When we were on Golden Guardians, we were for
Yeah.
sure 10th. 2020.
And even the start of this year, I feel like a lot of people had us at 10th as well.
Yeah, there was a lot of people that had you guys either 9th or 10th, but
It's because
Yeah.
everyone hated. Everyone thought at the start of the year that Stixxay and Licorice were really bad and washed up. I remember that. And then there was a couple of narratives about Gory being terrible in LPL. But I just remember all the narratives were very negative. So that's all I'm saying.
I think if you look at teams that go 10th historically in the league, like, I mean, we've placed terribly in the league before too. Those teams usually go like 4 to 6 wins with like 14 losses to 12 losses, right? So you're looking at like a 4 to 14 record. And Okay, so when you end up in those situations, it's either like two things. It's like the first thing is like the roster build, like on paper, is like it's so weak, like player for player, that you just don't have enough like brute force to like, be able to like actually handle being in the league. And honestly, um, I think there's been very few instances where that's actually been the problem. I think if your team is ever going 4-14, like culturally, or environmentally, there has to be something so drastically wrong, for you to be in that bad of a shape. Because I know Immortals finished 10th or 9th or 8th consistently, right? But if you put them in like a different team environment or different culture where they're under like guidance of a staff that like knows what winning actually looks like, then I think they would have like done a lot better even with the same roster iterations, because I think a large portion of like coaching or just leadership in general is like helping people envision what the end game picture looks like. Like if you're not someone that understands what winning has ever looked like how can you actually like show people how to win? Um, like I'm not talking about just in game. I'm talking about like culture slash like team wide. So like if you've never won before, or if you don't know what winning looks like, I think it becomes really really difficult to like instill that type of culture. Um, so yeah, I think I'm really surprised to see that power ranking too. But I would say like I would say my expectations are pretty similar to yours, David.
Okay.
Where I think we're definitely aware that like the expectations need to be tempered a little bit, because we are jumping in with rookies, but I definitely don't want people to underestimate us, because I think like our core of like River and Isla, it should be like a pretty strong enough starting baseline for us to have like a decent starting point. And I think a lot of the variance is going to come down to like all of the carry roles. So yeah, I think we're definitely like shooting for the upside, and I'm really relying on the coaching staff to kind of like get us there. Because I think we all like see it on paper in terms of like the scouting that we've had individually with each player. Now it's just about like, A, do we identify that talent correctly, which is like the first step. Two, are we doing everything in our power to get the player there? Because I think I was a coach before. I think the best feeling in the world is like stepping back and saying like I did everything that I possibly could throughout this year to like help this player grow and succeed. And whether or not they did or succeed, you never want to like say at the end of the year, I could have like worked harder, I could have like covered these topics, I could have like done this. You never want to have that like thoughts in your head, right? You always want to leave the year saying, I was prepared, I was planned, I did everything that I could. So I think that's really the approach we want to have with our rookies too, is like this is a really difficult challenge and project, and we want to make sure from our standpoint that we did our like planning thoroughly and we could walk away from the year saying that we did everything that we could.
Are there any like quantifiable metrics that we from the outside can like look at as a benchmark? Like I think back to one of the things that I loved that Reaper said whenever he was coaching 100 Thieves was like his goal was to get every player at the time first all pro and like have like that as the benchmark. And like if you're not hitting that, then in his eyes, he wasn't doing enough to elevate the players on an individual basis to the point where that was happening. Now, obviously, the odds of everybody getting first all pro, slim to none, but it's at least a bar and a metric that like we as fans could be like, okay, FBI during that stretch probably was one of the best ADCs in the league, if not the best. So someday, you could debate that. Abadage at the time was obviously performing well towards the end of the split. Closer was, I think, #1 up there with everybody. Yeah. Like, are there metrics like that going into this year that we could use?
I would say forward facing, probably not. Like you guys get like a sense of forward facing already just by watching their stage games. I think what we do, it kind of comes down to our scouting process. We basically take a huge sample size of games when we scout players, and we basically look at like their laning phase and basically every single like skirmish or team fight that happens in a game, and we kind of rank those like fights or skirmishes on several like factors and categories. And basically that gives us a pretty good idea of like where the individual's like skill level is. And we can kind of like repeat that process at the end of each split and kind of see like if those like areas improved. So just like think about it as like a FIFA or like an NBA scorecard on a player, and it's more so about like the players' like scores go up throughout the course of the split. So basically, are we on track? So that's like the kind of the assessment that route that we would take. that's like a little bit more a numerical. But I think a lot of it just really depends on like how the coaches are vibing with the players and making sure we're on track.
I've got a content piece suggestion then.
Okay.
You do a Subway scoring video each week where you make a FIFA or like NFL like player card with like the rating and like everything, and you have like several factors, and you just hand them out each week, just for shits and giggles.
That's pretty
So
funny, actually.
yeah, we're pretty harsh on our evaluation, so some of those guys are gonna have pretty awful scores. So I'm not sure if we want to
But
do that.
that's great
Well,
content though.
it is great content. It serves the community for sure. I need to make sure it serves our players and staff. So I'll get back to you on that. Grace and Sam will be in touch soon. But let's put that
Serve
on the
me up
hold
a
for now.
meatball marinara.
As long as you don't Bud Light ace them, I think it should be fine. Whatever the
Grayson, I could see your
videos.
your fucking face before you said that. Like,
You knew it was coming.
This stupid.
You knew it was
God.
coming.
Paul, anything you got? Well, before I was gonna transition to like esports winner, 100 Thieves org stuff, which I know is not necessarily your forte, so I want to make sure you get anything in.
No, I think we've covered about everything I could ask.
By the way, I know it's been an hour and 15. I'm not sure if you guys have time restrictions. We didn't discuss that beforehand, but if you got a dip. Like, don't feel obligated to stay here and bullshit with us. But on the esports winner side of thing, we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier in terms of the roster building, but I wanted to get all of your thoughts on just the state of the league right now, and the LCS in general. Just where you think things are at. We obviously hear a lot of the downsides, viewership being the lowest it's ever been. What do you think we can be doing differently, that we maybe should be doing differently? Like, do you guys bear any responsibility in terms of trying to help this grow in the same way that we do as fans, that maybe the broadcast does? Like, what do we all got to do to like just join hands together and get this thing to grow again?
You want to go?
You want to go? Okay. I mean, it's actually interesting because I came from OS, which had a similar thing happen. I think there are two things that can draw audience and kind of rebuild the LCS. The first thing is results, which is the obvious thing. Like, until NRG, I don't think NA. The last time before that NA performed well was like what? It was something like Team Liquid. But
No,
it was
never Team Liquid. It was Cloud9 against some Freaker Freaks.
You could technically make the argument. I mean, fans will make the argument that the 2 and 4 Cloud9 from 2021 got out of groups. I don't think that was a result necessarily to be proud of, but sure.
The point is that like NA hasn't done well enough for the last few years to make people want to watch, and like what makes leagues unique, what makes LCK and LPL unique and keep drawing increased audiences is that they're just so good. Like that's like their major selling point. And you mentioned like who takes responsibility for that? Well, yeah, I guess like in a sense we do. We all take responsibility for that, us and every other team. There are some things in NA that make it slightly harder to improve. But I don't want to get into it. It just sounds like excuses. So primarily results is the one thing that needs to be better going forward, and that will draw audiences. But the other thing that was unique to NA that drew audiences at the start was the connection to streamers. The TSM, CLG, like own 3D TV era, where those teams managed to build like such an amazing connection where it felt like when you were a viewer and you'd watch like Saint Vicious or Dyrus, you felt like you were a part of the team. No one has been able to recreate that in a long time in NA. And we're kind of moving past the golden era of like Doublelift's just retired, Bjergsen's gone, and now we have to rebuild a new era and rebuild new connections to the audience to grow audiences. And it's challenging to do, but I think that organizations have the resources to be able to do it. And Joe could probably talk a little bit better about that aspect of it as well. But I think those are the two major things that can be better to regrow the audience for NA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm. You
Go
want to
ahead,
go? You go
Grayson.
next, so.
No, I think you should just touch on it first, and I can kind of wrap
Sure.
it up.
Sure. I was just gonna say that I think that from like a standpoint of like where the scene's at, I think basically, I've been around for a long time. Back in like 2013, 2014, people weren't necessarily doing it for the money. People were doing it because that's what they really wanted to be pro gamers. It was all about the passion, right? And what it could be. I think somewhere between like 2016 to like 2020, it really just became about the money for a lot of people in the scene. It wasn't the passion and like the motivation to just do it for the sake of doing it. To me, wasn't there, and I don't even think it's like too much to be blamed on like the players, the people in the scene. It's just kind of the thing when VC funding and a bunch of money comes in, and people who are making the decisions, honestly, not very good at making the decisions on like where to put the money. I think that you create a system where like if you say, "Hey, I'm going to pay you $1 million to play this video game," like it actually makes it so you don't want to play it as much because you're assuming that it's like hard to do because someone's paying you so much money. I think we're returning to a phase where like the money's still good, people are still making a living. No one's like struggling in LCS, but you're more so doing it out of passion and out of like the want to improve. And I think from that aspect, like I guess it's like more kind of like player team side. I'm really excited about that. I don't really know exactly how that translates into viewerships, but I do think if anyone is doing something they're passionate about for the purpose of trying to be better at that, it is contagious. So I'm hoping that there is some factors there that can like help grow the audience. But specifically, I feel like it's like it almost feels like a returning to a bit more grassrooty esports to me.
Yeah. I would definitely just agree with like both the points like Grayson and Sam are making. To touch on Sam's points first, yeah, I think talking about like why NA is restricted in terms of results, the list is like so incomparably long. I think from my side, I've been like scouting and like making player decisions on 100 Thieves for such a long time now, and our metric has always been like identify the best player in each role, which players can we afford, and then just like put the best roster possible. That's pretty much what the 21-21 roster was. So it was like rank the best player in like each role that we can find, and just like put it together and like see if it makes sense. And I think one thing I realized when we put together that roster is like we attended every single like final stadium, and there was such a large portion of the audience that were supporting the other teams. And I know for a fact that like 100 Thieves just has like a larger audience and like engagement than other organizations. So what was it that drew like teams to cheer for these other teams? And I think one thing is like I was talking to Kelby about this a little bit, but winning really all it does is it like puts like a light onto like a product that you have, right? Like if you win, you get to see clear under like a telescope what that product actually is, and it's basically putting a spotlight. But if your like product isn't interesting or if it doesn't resonate with the fans, like no matter how like large that spotlight is, it isn't going to be interesting. And the broadcast can only bullshit so much to like make an uninteresting product interesting. Like I'm sure, like I'm not gonna name teams, but you see in the LCS like a caster going over like two bottom teams like competing in an LCS match. Like they're gonna try their best to make that match entertaining, but the fans know deep down intuition wise that shit is not interesting. Um, so I think a large portion of our roster builds like for the past like in 2023 and moving 2024 is like we want to put together the best product possible, but I also wanted to make sure that I'm thinking a little bit more about like the community coming first, because like we wouldn't be here without our community and our fans. So 2023, we brought back two goats that I still thought could perform at a pretty high level. And at the same time, we were like developing two of like NA's most promising prospects. It's like fans can buy into that at a competitive level. It's also very interesting. And I think that's like a very similar approach that we want to have this year. Whereas I want to provide a product that we think is competitive internally, but at the same time can serve the purpose of like, can fans resonate with what this is trying to do for the ecosystem? So I think that's like first and foremost around like construction philosophy is like the market shifted so much that we definitely could have had like a very like veteran-esque roster or just like a very similar build to like I would say like Immortals, or other like roster builds of that sort. And even if like we do like win one or two more regular season games, so we place like one rank higher in spring split, right? What does that really do for us at the end of the year? Like if I ask you right now, David, like who finished like fifth or sixth in spring split of 2023, or 2022? Like, do you care or remember? If I ask you in 2021 who finished fifth or sixth, like, do you remember even like fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh? Like, none of that matters, unless you're like really drawing compelling products. So you really need to like zoom the lens out a little bit and understand like what success is. And success is always going to be winning, but it's always going to be about like captivating the audience, bringing that like engagement and viewership over to your organization, to the game, and seeing if we can like create a long-lasting narrative. Because like yeah, spraying up like split over split, like people might remember for a couple of weeks, but you zoom the lens out over the course of a year, multiple number of years, like people are only going to remember the most interesting stories. So we think we have a pretty compelling story in both these years, and we really want to see these stories thrive. When it comes to esports winter, um, I think you touched on winning, Sam, being one of the core things, the other being community first. I think we really just need to adjust expectations on like what players and coaches and like staff all around need to do when it comes to proactivity around like socials. Like they really need to understand that content is honestly very just saturated right now. Like in the golden era of own.tv, right? This was like the first time where like they were the premium content creators on the web in general and like in the gaming category. Um, and this is like primarily where you tuned in to like consume gaming content. But now I think like content creating has been a lot more systematic, where any individual, especially during the COVID era, really like jumped into content. So you have so many creators now, especially on TikTok, like just pumping out content like consistently. Like even AI now with like it's just pushing out like algorithms of like content, and there's just so much content to consume. So it makes sense to me that LCS viewership is down, and it's not that gaming is dying. Like if you look at game statistics across the globe, even like world viewership, like gaming is still very much alive. Um, so now it's about like finding a new model that makes esports sustainable. Um, and I think like hopefully when we get more notifications about like what the format's going to look like in 2024, that'll give us some hope. I'm hoping that weekend games come back because honestly the decision to move it to weekdays was based on like Twitch like viewership data that was just like I think it was like made by a middle schooler. Like it was like, hey, like if we move to weekdays, it's gonna be. I was like, based on what data points? Like this is a data set, and the data set wasn't even accurate. So um, hoping for a lot there. But yeah, I think content is just going to be saturated. So it's just like we have to do our part, and we have to change the expectations on like what the player and staff obligations are. Like, I think for so long they were getting paid so much money, so it's just like all you have to do is win. Don't focus on anything else. Don't have to interact with the community. And I think the narrative is a little bit different. It's like you try your best to do both without it affecting like you as a competitive player. So I hope that answers a little bit about both of the points that they touched on.
It does. There's just a few comments that I want to make on that, which aren't contradictory to yours. It's more just emphasizing the point. We've seen, I think the point of content being saturated has been
Yeah.
true for a few years now.
Mhm.
Granted, TikTok is now starting to get to that point, whereas before it was kind of like the Wild West. Now it's kind of flushed out a bit. But like, there's two responses to that. The first is you can either A, see that it's saturated and not do anything about that and just, kind of ignore it because you don't think that you're going to be able to make a dent, which is what some teams have done in the league. Or you can try and find a way to innovate. And even if it's not succeeding, the fact that you would try something means a lot to the community that you're trying to build. And that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing where I think a lot of LCS teams just really need to take a hard look in the mirror and just ask, what kind of stuff am I putting out to try and build a community? If it's the same docuseries, the same podcast, and the same shit that you were doing back in 2018, hoping that it's going to be any different now, it's never going to work. You are never going to be able to break into a modern content world and like push yourself to a different level doing the same things before. Content changes on a week-to-week basis, let alone trying to do the same thing as time goes on. Yes, it's good to have something that is continuous. The heist I will bring up because a lot of fans have wanted the heist to return, and Subway coming in and like giving this very clear, fresh breath of air for 100 Thieves fans this past split has been great. But like you need to be innovating on top of having that baseline as well.
Yeah.
So that was the note I wanted to make on the content side. On the league side, for fucking weekends, I could go on for hours. Paul and I have gone on for hours. As a fan, I can't stand it. I've been against this since the moment that it got announced, that there's no way that people tried to say, oh, you know, you'll be able to watch it more. Bullshit. And clearly we weren't. And I will say from the point of view of trying to build a community, at least here in New York, as we have bi-weekly watch parties here, it made attending watch parties in person impossible. By the end of summer split, typically when the LCS was on weekends, we'd still have 15 to 20 people still showing up, even though numbers would dwindle from what they were in spring. It wouldn't be bad. And then finals is an exclusion because it's finals. I had maybe 2 or 3 people showing up by midsummer for a finals or for just a normal regular season of LCS, which was like, it was a real punch in the gut that made me stop and think, okay, maybe this is dying. Like this, it was the first time that it like really hit me that, wow, we might be in trouble. But then we held a World's Finals watch party. Well, granted, it was T1, so there's a obvious note and exception to be had there. But we had 250 people show up at 3 a.m. in the morning in New York.
Dang.
And it's like, I can't look at that and think that it's dead.
Yeah.
If people are willing to show up, like nobody's going to show up at 3 a.m. on a weekday because obviously we have work. But like, if we can get that turnout on a Sunday morning at 3 a.m., I promise you I can get 50 people to show up on a consistent basis, building it up over the course of 2 or 3 years here in New York for weekend LCS. It's got to get back to weekends because I know the league is going to try and do their shit, but like from the community point of view, we as fans can do more when we actually have time and we're not working a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
God,
I totally agree with that.
Pissed me off.
Yeah, that shit was wild.
I remember the news broke too during Worlds last year, because we were at the CLG like happy hour pregame thing, and it broke, and I'm just sitting there talking to Greg Kim and some of the people who like were part of the conversations. I was like, why? This can't. There's no way this has got to be the right answer.
Yeah.
No,
I will
that's totally
say
with you.
the last thing about like league viewership in general is like, yeah, LPL and LCK, they're still in good hands because they're at the top of the competition. But North American gaming trends is like very trendy. And you look at League of Legends compared to like Valorant, it is so complicated. It's so slow. Like our like younger generation is so focused on consuming content like on a short-term focus basis that like League of Legends just has like too much like knowledge base involved in the game now. Like we're releasing a new patch every couple of weeks. We're releasing like new champions. We have like over 100 like I don't know how many champions we're at. Like it's like 140 or something.
I think it's over 160 now.
Yeah, it's like a really ridiculous number of champions. So like you think about all the different interactions, it's just so the barrier of entry is so high. So I think from like a standpoint of like how do we it's like all the content that you're talking about, it's going to raise engagement, raise awareness, and it might reinvigorate like former fans and current fans. But if we really want to captivate the younger audience, I think the barrier of entry, we need to like figure out how to solve that. And in my eyes, it's just like simplifying how competitive is run on a format level. I'm talking about in terms of like just champions in general, or like I think in the very very distant future, it has to be like League Two with like a fresh like reset of champions with like completely new UI.
Fearless
Because
draft.
I just think not even fearless draft. Like I think it needs to be like a return to like Valorant, where like the graphics are completely reset and you're working with like a rotating pool of like 10 champions. Like then I think the barrier of entry is like it's sexy and it's like fun and it's like easy because that's like what made League of Legends such a great alternative to these games like Heroes of New Earth and Dota. Like the graphics was way better for its time, and the barrier of entry was so much easier. Like it wasn't as complex of a game. Um, but we're getting to the point now where like League of Legends is just so complicated. So to me, the long-term fix like that is like a huge barrier right there. So I think it's like a huge conversation there. But I think doing our part to like raise awareness, what you said around content, like try and do something different. I think that's like the same approach we want to take with kind of like our roster. It's like we don't want to like flush and repeat the same roster building process that we've seen because like we've been like top spenders in the league before, right? In our championship years, like five to one spenders, and now we're in a situation where we're like five to eight spenders. So, you know, are we going to just do what like other orgs that were in similar positions did previously of just like making uninteresting products, but that would like secure us playoffs and like again at the end of the year, no one's going to care whether you finish like third to 10th, like maybe like third to 8th, right? Because like people do remember like which team finished last or completely collapsed, like FlyQuest as an example. But like no one is going to care like in the middle pack. Like it literally just does not matter over the long run. So I think that's like a really big reflection point I had in the past couple of years.
I would say general fans won't care, but I think like because when you asked that question, I was like, okay, I can't remember every team and how they finished, but it's like, do I really care about every team? The answer is no. But I could sit here and tell you exactly where 100 Thieves finished from 2020 on, and where
Mhm.
Optic finished every year from 2018 to 2019 until God bless our exit. May we rest in peace. Uh, I can sit there and remember that where it's like I that to me is always going to be the pathway forward. Is like I know the LCS right now, or at least for a long time, was like players over teams because players would change, they'd swap teams, etc. People just found it hard to like find an organization and cheer for it. If we could figure out how to just get more towards the team side, that feels like an avenue for it. Because I guarantee you, Paul can answer the same thing of like every year that TSM has ever played, you could probably within one name or say where you finished and maybe even who you lost to.
I mean, not recently now because TSM sucks so bad I kind of trauma dumped it all. But
Yeah, I guess it does matter for the fans for sure, but I think for us the larger goal is like, especially with a developmental roster like this one, it's like success for us at the end of the year is like making sure we did everything in our grasp to like push these players forward on a process basis, and like I just want continuity before the years, between the years, right? Like let's say we finish like 5 through 7th or whatever, but like we're starting again from scratch next year with like no returning pieces, like then what was the point of this year, right? I think that's what I kind of mean when I'm saying zooming out the lens. It's like if you are focused on a developmental project, like no matter where you place, like the goal should be to have continuity between the years. Like I think if we don't have at least like 3 returning players on this roster, that'll be like a really big surprise to me because obviously there's always going to be changes from split to split from year to year depending on how everyone performs. But there should be some level of continuity that allows you to like rebuild properly. And that's kind of how like quote unquote like dynasties or like franchise players, that's what they do. Like if you look at like Cloud9, they rotated between franchise players like throughout their history, right? Like Blabber's kind of their new franchise player that they build around, but they generally have like 2 to 3 players on the roster that they like keep consistently over the course of the years to like allow new players to fit in and like to set a baseline. So that's what we really want to achieve going into this year is like figure out how to create that baseline, because we haven't really been able to do it in the past. And the years where we were very successful in the LCS or League of Legends as a whole, we bought out the Golden Guardians core. So that was kind of like a cheat code for 2 years. And honestly, we've done like a super successful job at Next and Amateur. So we kind of want to replicate that in the LCS and see if we can reproduce those results.
I just want to butt in real quick. I have to go get food in like 5 minutes, but just wanted to put that in there.
That I don't have any other questions on my mind, so I was just gonna shoot the shit for a bit because Paul and I typically go for like 2 hours. So
Nice.
if you guys want to chat about anything in general, floor is all yours to talk about whatever you want.
I guess then let me try to think. I mean, I just want to shout out to you for making this happen, because I feel like you're very passionate about like these. I mean, you've kind of, since I've seen you cropping up on like Twitter and like doing TikToks and stuff, I think it's like we need people who are like passionate about the scene, who are also like willing to like do different forms of media too, because I feel like a lot of people don't use TikTok, don't do other things, and I feel like it's pretty important for the growth of the league to like accept the new social platforms that are there. And just shout out to all 100 Thieves fans who are supporting us. I think we're gonna have a really exciting split coming up, and yeah, I mean, I'm pumped that, you know, not only is it, you know, we got a bunch of rookies, but it's also gonna be my first year coaching and head coach of the LCS, right? So just as like my players should be growing a lot, I'm expecting the same out of myself. So yeah, I'm just really excited for the opportunity. Yeah.
Shout out to Miss Chim Chim, who's been absolutely crushing it on TikTok for the league scene. I know she does co-streams for the LCS too. She's one of the few early adopters that
Yeah.
she's been killing it.
Yeah. Cool. Well, on that note, I'm gonna go get some dinner because I'm starving.
Enjoy the food.
But thanks for having me, and I really enjoyed this a lot.
Thanks for coming on. Hope to chat with you again throughout the course of the year.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I'll join Grace because I need to deal with my dogs and that kind of stuff.
Enjoy.
I'll show you her. She's just been helped him.
Your camera just died.
Yep. Throwing the dog.
Where is she? Can you see her? No, it's too dark. Wait. I have to be able to show her. Melly. No, it's too dark. Fuck. That's sad. But I have to take her out. She's just staring at me through the crate the whole time. But it was a pleasure. Thank you for having me. And any future podcasts, the boys will be around.
Invitation. You guys are welcome to come on anytime you want. We can Pat McAfee this entire thing. I have no money to pay you, but I can offer like $3 if you want to come on each and every week.
You can just take me out to pizza if I'm in New York sometime.
Oh no, you have to take him in the golf lesson. Remember? I think that's.
Oh yeah, the golf lesson.
Yeah.
That's a fair trade. I'd be willing to do that.
Yeah. I'm definitely down for the golf. Look, I'll even send you a little video of my swing, and you can critique it.
That's fine by me.
I'll tell you my swing. It's actually pretty clean, but like I think there are a few fundamentals that could use some help.
Question: did you play any sports growing up?
Yeah, I played golf growing up.
Oh, okay.
And like AFL, it's just Australian football.
Yeah.
Yeah. I played a few different sports.
Any injuries I need to know about?
No. I've got a lot of movement. I'm good. I'm good to go. I had a little Achilles, like it's like not aligned, but I don't think it's relevant. So it'll be fine.
Right or left leg?
Right leg.
And are you a lefty or righty?
I'm a righty.
Okay, so right leg, right Achilles. It's not that big of a deal then. You're fine.
Nice.
If it was lefty, it'd be a problem because then your shift, the main foot that I'm concerned about is the one that leads off because that's the one that you're throwing your entire body.
Put all the weight on.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, fair enough. All right, I look forward to it.
Sounds good.
And again, thanks for having me on. See you guys.
Dropping like flies.
I think we can pretty much wrap up our segment if you need me and Nathan for anything else. But I'd be down to
like I said, floor is just all yours. If you guys want to shoot shit, go right ahead. If not, Paul and I will just chat about the news and what's going on.
Great. I think I'll probably hop out then and join the coaches. But again, really appreciate you having us here. Definitely want to retouch with our community like more. Um, I think just like in all aspects. So just really appreciate you guys having us. Hope we provided some insight, like stuff that we haven't been able to touch on. And hopefully we can be back in the future.
I mean, I think you did, but then again, I'm biased, so I'm gonna eat up everything like it's water in the
Oh.
desert. Paul is gonna be the more accurate
Hey,
reaction to that than me.
well, you already won Dave over because you said you didn't like weekdays, and that's
There's
Dave's.
not a lot to like.
Yeah, that's not a lot to
that's
like.
Dave's biggest gripe for the past year.
Between that and hitting the road more, but I don't need Travis coming down
True.
my throat again for fucking.
Yeah. Dave and I are big like high school events and college events people. We think if League of Legends did more of those, they could buy people in.
It amazes
Yeah,
me
I think-
Spring Files has not
yeah.
been on a college campus.
Yeah.
Grassroots is like smaller communities is like how you grow things. Like it needs to start small, like small communities everywhere. Kind of like that's how it grows big. Honestly, like I think Plays VS completely ruined the high school scene. So that was like a huge problem. And then that kind of like shut off, I think, a large portion of like our high school network, like traffic. So yeah, I think there needs to be a lot of effort placed on that, how to rebuild that. I think
There's a lot
collegiate's
of
doing.
cool things with collegiate. I mean, I came from collegiate originally. Like, I worked for Harrisburg before 100 Thieves. I was my last team
Hey.
before there. And, at the time, that was one of the, like, top 2 programs. So I really like the collegiate scene. I still keep up with it in certain regards.
What years were
I
you
know.
there?
Oh, God, what was the first year I was on 100T? I have no idea. That was a long time ago. Because
Were
I've
you-
been with 100T like 5 years almost.
Were you like
So-
on campus in Harrisburg though?
No, I worked with the
Ah,
team
damn.
remotely. I mean, like they only had like me as like kind of like half coach, and then they had like an Overwatch program at the same time, so there was only like 3 staff between those 2 programs. So I did most of the coaching for the team, but I can't recall the exact year. It must be like 2017 or something. But I don't know. I never got to go in person, but there's a lot of cool people that have worked there. History teacher was still leading the program at the time. He was like kind of an older name for league in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, wow.
We reached out. So my family actually owns a restaurant 15 minutes away from Harrisburg University campus.
Oh, really?
And,
Damn.
Yeah, they did a game night in affiliation. I think with just like the club, or not it wasn't the esports program, but it was like their like student center. They came down to the restaurant, took every TV, and just put like Game Cubes and a bunch of other shit on there, and just started playing Smash, and like just had a game night down at the brewery, and people just drank, played Mario Kart and Smash, and had a good time. So it's like I'm waiting. One of these days, I'll find somebody that actually knows like the Harrisburg area that I can really start bugging them. On
I mean, there's a lot of like cool local scenes like that for Smash, so it'd be cool if Harrisburg, or to hear that it has stuff like that. But yeah, it'd be nice if League had those same sort of local scenes, but not really. At least not currently.
We're working on it here in New York. I don't want to spoil anything too much, but I will say for those that are familiar with Brookland, and his name is I forget how to pronounce his last name, Alec Palsy. Sorry, Alec. He's expecting his kid on the way in the next few days, so congratulations to him. I don't know if his wife is delivered yet, but we're in talks now to try and do League of Legends tournaments here locally in New York, and just
nice.
do like New York specific stuff. If I have my choice, I'm not sure what the restrictions are on it, and I got to reach out to Riot just to confirm. But I would like to have like an annual New York City championship in a way of just like get some sort of trophy, and just like the defending team has to come back each year. It's like that's the catch. You got to come back and defend your title in the boroughs, and just make as much out of it as we can. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, I think that could be a lot of fun. I think any local scene like that, I don't know. There's a lot of people that don't have anything like that. So
we would have random tournaments at the Microsoft store on 5th Ave, and you'd have 8 of the challenger players on one of NYU's various teams just pop up, and they just come in and smash everybody and take the free RP. It's like, imagine if they actually had a prize pool or something to play for. It'd be great.
Yeah. I miss like the whole like rank fives and like local tournaments, like go for lulz. Like that was a huge part of like my experience. Like also trying to like go pro at one point. So I think like huge setups there would also be very good. So it's definitely something that I am actively thinking about, seeing if we can make strides in ourselves. But yeah, I definitely agree. Just like you have to start grassroots for you to like make real movement across the board. So um, I think when we figure out what we want to do on that end, we'll also like keep in touch with our community there too.
Here's what you do. You pitch to Riot and be like, look, whoever the guy that created Premier Mode in Valorant, we up his salary by 100K and bring him over to the league side and force that in the game. And then
Okay.
all of a sudden, problem solved. And
Okay.
everything flushes itself out.
Okay.
They did make a pretty good like faith movement, I would say, with the CB LOL tournament that happened, or CB LOL, allowing NA guys to be in that. Because I know the
Yeah.
Mr. Beast tournament, when they didn't let Bjergsen do that, I was crushed. I was like, dude, that's like getting rid of that rule was
Yeah.
good to me.
I think the thing that I'll leave on is like I do think Americas will need to merge at a certain point, whether that's like in 2025 or in the distant future. Definitely have to consolidate these regions somehow. But with that, I'll hop out and let you guys
Okay.
wrap up.
Thank
Again,
you
thanks
so
for having
much.
us. Yeah, thanks guys.
I look forward
Yeah.
to smoking some Brazilian meats and feasting on their downfall when they come to the LCS. It's going to be great.
I hope so. I mean, I think those teams are a little under respected usually. A lot of the like, I don't know, B-Boy, I think is coming out of that league, right? That's like kind of the most recent
Yes.
acquisition, and a lot of like those players are really misunderstood. And yeah, they're not all gonna do well. Obviously, there's like the Jose Dioto thing experiment, I guess, like a year or two ago, but I think it's a very interesting league, and they've done a lot better with their fan bases and stuff like that. So, I don't know. I think they do a lot of things really well, and I think merging with them, if it does eventually happen, there are positives to it too. So
I would just like to see one full Brazilian team come over. Or, well, I mean, obviously, it would happen via the merger itself, but like, I'd like to see how far they could progress in a year or maybe two. Just like keep the same roster and just watch how quickly they grow because they have insane mechanical talent. It's just always that, like, even Dom was joking about it while watching the coach stream on TV Loud. I was like, they always seem to do something decent in early game, and then there just comes that point where something happens and it flips and the Brazilian tragedy strikes. And it's like,
yeah,
if they practice against LCS teams, at some point that's going to, at least from a Western point of view, will fix itself. And it's like, that becomes scary then.
I definitely think it would benefit them. I mean, they are lacking, quality competition a lot of the time. I mean, like sometimes LCS teams like scrim them and stuff like that, and you get to get a lot better feel for how they play the game. But they really are just lacking teams that will challenge them at the phases of the game that they are not good at, which are usually just later. But yeah, I don't know. I think there would be less or a lot more disparity between the NA teams and the Brazilian teams than like there are for Valorant, right? Where Valorant's, the Brazilian teams are very good. But it would still be interesting regardless. So
I mean, in theory, we're
know.
better though, right? Because I mean, we won.
Well, in theory,
we won
yeah, in
Valorant
theory.
champions. We won Valorant Game Changers. Like, the Americas are just simply like, NA's just better.
Well, Loud was pretty strong for a while there. I mean, we're on a whole different game now, but I also do work on Valorant, and I don't know. I mean, their teams are very, I don't know, dynamic and do a lot of like cool experimentation stuff. They actually do the same type of things in League, and I don't know. I think they challenge NA teams in Valorant in ways that other NA teams sometimes don't. So, in the end, I think it helps both of them grow a lot.
I won't deny that they're good, but this is the T1 JDG question of, if you don't win it all at the end of the year, does it really fucking matter?
Well, it doesn't matter from a narrative standpoint, but I think it does matter technically. But I'm always down a little bit more in the weeds of like
Junglejuice's words himself is, if the narrative is the only thing that matters. Hey, I didn't say the words. He did. He was the one that said, if you're not winning, does it really matter?
The narrative matters a lot. That's fair. I mean, I don't know. Like Joe was kind of saying, we won 2021 and we get second twice in 2022.
Yep.
but no one cares, or like a lot less people care than they probably should when you're the most consistent team for 2 years. You do need to have the story. You need to have the players that people care about. Hopefully, that's something that we're kind of building for next year a lot better. I mean, I think there's a lot to be excited about with this roster in a non-meme sort of way. I don't know. I think it's really exciting to work with young talent. And saying 100T is not experimented a lot with. It usually have been very careful moves with, and if they were put in, it was with really experienced players. This is just a very young roster that can go up far or could, lose a lot more. And that's why everyone wants to temper the expectations. And that's why a lot of people in the community don't expect a lot. But I think that's great. I think not having that expectations on us actually is exciting.
Maybe for you as the staff. For me, I'm fighting from the fucking trenches.
Well, I have been following your Twitter journey. I don't know what to call it, crusade. Gathering your death note of people that have placed us 8th. But I don't know. I like being placed 8th. I just think there's only room to go up.
Nah,
that's fun.
Fuck that. Give me the pressure of first every time. Here's my thing. If people place us 8th reasonably and like gave me an actual explanation, then fine. But fucking pastry time coming out here and be like, I'm just gonna put them 8th because you're fucking out here collecting names. It's like, okay. At this point I'm using it as ammo, and that's fine. I don't even
No, that's good. I mean, a lot of people are playing us 8th because they think this roster was put together with no thought or some shit like that. It's pretty much the opposite from the truth, and we can only prove that by our performance and how well we improve on the year. But yeah, like Joe said, we just want to make this year into something that will be productive for our long-term future. Find those like pieces that can be our core year on year and change our narrative around where we're a popular team because of what we've done for the scene. So I hope we can do that.
That gave me a lot of hope though when he said that, because that kind of goes back to the Travis tweet. Like the Travis tweet earlier today, how some people, like this guy sent him, he fell out of love with LCS because rosters changed a lot. And I think like the CLG into NRG thing of them keeping that roster that long and only changing out 2 of the 5 and then winning it all, like it does buy in people a lot more because they fall in love with the roster. Obviously, eventually, like I don't think any league roster is really going to last 3 to 4 years. Like they usually are going to end around there. But 1 to 2 years, or my bad, 2 to 3 years is a nice time because you can fall in love. And at least if I would say 3 out of 5 of the roster stay around, that's nice. It just feels good from a fan perspective because you have a majority of the roster you're still in love with, or at least have a relationship.
Yeah, certainly. I think that's something we're hoping to get for. I mean, it's definitely never ideal to change out 5 players or 4 players going into the next year. And most of the time, no one's doing that because they want to. There's a lot of outside factors that like contribute to that. But yeah, I don't know. I totally agree. Yeah, I don't know. I'll probably leave it there. I also am kind of getting kind of hungry. But no, it was great talking with you guys. Thanks for having all the guys on. Really appreciate it. Thanks for supporting us, and I hope we I don't know, exceed expectations going into this year. Not that sounds hard.
Exactly. It's not gonna be fucking 8th. That's all.
It's not gonna be 8th. That's the hope. That's the work.
Thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Night, guys.
I saved it. I didn't say it, but I was gonna say when he was saying you writing in your death note, I was like, yeah, Dave's sitting writing in his death note to his SpongeBob AI songs.
You could have.
Just right away.
Oh,
the SpongeBob AI rap battles.
Bro, did you listen to the latest one?
No.
It's I'm playing it for you after we're done here. It's unbelievable. It's great.
I gotta put Sam to bed in a minute.
Okay.
She was spam texting me.
Alright, we'll wrap this up because we would go for 2 hours. And then
it's fine.
Are you just putting her to bed and then coming back, or like you?
Yeah, it should be fairly quick.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, we'll wrap this up. I'll end this so that you can go, take care of your wife, which not many other League
Yeah.
players can relate to.
Well, according to them, not many players can relate to because they're all going away.
Oh god. What were your
Actually,
what were your final takeaways on that, by the way? Just to wrap it up.
dude, they kind of. I know I say this after every team, but they actually low key sold me more than most. Like on being like, bro, I could cheer for that team. Like, because we both know Shopify kind of turned me off towards that. I know they probably don't. Like, there's a lot of people who probably think B-Boy's a good guy. But I've been very vocal about if people say he's a good guy, then he's probably not the greatest at the game. If you ever get compliment at work and your boss says, yeah, he's a really good person, you're like, damn. So it's like, I don't really care about them as much. So listening to them kind of hype up and talk about a team that you can kind of fall in love with pretty quick, especially because of Sniper, dude. Like, it's not fair. He's a cheat code, bro.
I mean, not even just that, though. Like, honestly, their chemistry as a coaching staff, I was not sure what to expect. Because, like, you know, sometimes you come in and it's a little bit formal, like one person takes their time speaking, etc., stuff like that. For what callers don't know, we were in a call with them for 30 minutes prior to this, just talking through everything, like, kind of just, like, chatting and just getting to know each other before we went live. Bro, it just bounces like that. And it's the chemistry there does a lot to inspire confidence in me. Because it's like, clearly, like, even if you see the game in a different light, which by all means I could, we got into it a little bit, and they seem mostly aligned with that. But, like, you know, when situations come up, you might have differentiating opinions in the same way that parents have differentiating opinions. But, like, the ability to effectively communicate those and get them across and, like, see each other's perspective is incredibly important. And what I saw there throughout that entire time was just effective communication from all levels, between Junglejuice, between Goldenglue, and between Spookz. That it's like, I have faith that we can problem solve this year, which I didn't have faith we could do last year.
Yeah, I mean, it sold me, dude. Like, I'm listening to it, I'm like, dude, they have, like, a coaching staff I kind of like. Like, I'm following what, and Spookz is, like, pulling you in with that Australian kind of twang to it. Yeah,
every time.
Like, he's definitely been in America for a while, because you can tell he's slowly becoming one of us, but he's still got that twang to him. And you're like, dude, I kind of like it. He's selling me in. And they're just, like, talking about the game in a way. Like, Junglejuice, bro, has some, like, he's really smart, dude.
He's a finance guy. He
was really dumping the logic, and he was really setting, like, he was painting a picture for me, and I was like, I kind of like what you're painting. I was like, this is pretty nice. I'm getting there. And I don't know, dude. Like, there's no... It's killing me, dude. There's no LCS teams I like. And I was listening to him, and I was like, maybe this has to be the one. Like...
So to be fair, NRG is releasing their coaching staff video similar to this, I think, within the next, like, day. So I'm curious after watching that, because honestly, I feel like it's a 2-horse race at this point between NRG and 100 Thieves for you, from what I'm, like, outside looking in. If their video persuades you, then I think you're probably going to be sold on NRG. But I think this did a lot to kind of swing you back, kind of bring you over to the dark side a little bit.
Freaking out, who are they, dude? It was, who was it? C9 and TL. I can't cheer for.
Yeah.
Because I just have, like, I've watched them long enough. I can't cheer for them. FlyQuest, I'm just not, like... There's something about FlyQuest that irks me. I don't know what it is. But ever since they've been in the league, I've always just been like, you're too happy. Like, it just bothers me how happy they are and how they want to save trees. I'm like, that bothers me. You shouldn't be that happy ever. You should be wanting to win, and you should hate your life. Like, that's the point of League. And I just can't stand it. But it... So it throws me in a pickle. I'm, like, sitting here looking at Thieves, and 100 Thieves has been around for a while, and I have friends who are 100 Thieves fans, and I know, like, originally I was telling them, like, I can't be a 100 T fan, because, like, if I'm a 100 Thieves fan, like, then this podcast is going to get really boring
No,
because we only cover 2 teams. But at the same time, I don't think it really matters. Kind of getting there, where I'm like, dude, it doesn't matter. And yeah, in NRG, I'm thinking about pretty strongly, but there's some, I don't know, there's some things there I got to figure out.
Okay. Well,
I'm close to them.
I know.
Immortals and Dig, I'm just not feeling.
Paul
I
can
don't know.
attest to everybody watching. I'm not secretly like DMing him,
Yeah, you
like
haven't.
trying to convince him. I've been very hands off on fandom, just doing my thing as a 100 Thieves fan.
Yeah.
And I will just say this to those that might think my Twitter blitzkrieg is a lot. I will say this. What team do you think has the most chatter on Twitter this offseason about them that's not directly related to roster moves?
Yeah.
I would
Probably
say
all.
I would say 100 Thieves because I'm trying to put the fucking name out there. Maybe C9 with JoJo PM, but like once they announced, like, I don't know, they announced and everybody's like, oh cool, they're number 1. My brigade has like 100 likes per tweet. That shit's
It
working.
does. You're building an audience of just people who think it's hilarious. Like, people buy into memes super hard. And you know all these people think it's so funny to be like, alright, you think we'll be 8th? And I'm honestly don't want this for them. Love those guys. That was a great interview. But I would cry laughing if they got 7th and you still looked at everybody and went, get fucked. Like at the very end. It just wasn't 8th. How's it feel, losers?
Oh, I'm going to. So long as we do not finish 8th, I'm going off. I am just laying into everybody, no matter what. It's going to be great. I cannot wait.
I mean, they actually do have, like, I don't know, their roster really isn't that bad. Like, I agreed with them. Like, when they were talking about Eyla, and they were like, man, we were reading it, and we just weren't getting why people didn't like him that much. Like, we were evaluating him, and he looks really good still. I think that's true. Like, because I never really saw, like, what the other teams were seeing, why FlyQuest got rid of him. I was like, yeah, I get you guys are struggling, but I think that's just natural when you have as good as a start as they had.
Yeah.
And
Eyla was 7-2, I think they said, as a starter
No.
on FlyQuest.
Yeah, he was still good. Like, they were still good with him. They just, like, for some reason, got in their own head. And obviously, are we really going to blame Eyla for the FlyQuest stint? Because they brought in Vulcan and looked worse. Like, they looked worse bottom lane. So,
And EG, I'm telling you, the shit was going on behind the scenes there. You could just, like, we called it out like week 2.
Oh, yeah.
That is just like, we're seeing this weird decline from that entire roster, barring JoJo.
Mhm.
Like, something's happening.
And I did go back and watch a bit more because, like, a few weeks ago, we were both saying, like, Ayla. And then somebody, like, in the comments was like, oh, Ayla's actually not that bad. And I was like, is he not? Am I, like, having just, like, what is it? Like, am I just getting syndromed right now? Because everybody said he was bad, and I went and watched games, and I was like, yeah, I mean, really, he wasn't that bad. Like, he was a part of a lot of the good plays. So I was like, oh. Kind of makes you think.
It does. Well, on that note, thank you to everybody that tuned in. Thank you to those that are still around. This is a big one for us. This is by far the most viewed we've ever had. I think it peaked at over like 42 people concurrent at one point, which is just nuts, including Sniper himself in the chat, which was hilarious. Thank you everybody for tuning in. The VOD will be up tomorrow. Next week podcast, as always, this Saturday, I've got a video on Double Lift and Bjergsen coming out, asking the question of who's the real GOAT between the two, which might be a little bit divisive, but I think it was a fun topic to explore. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one. Adios.